Hello, hello, and welcome once again. J76NY here, and we are back in Sordland with President Anton Rayne. The game is Suzerain. It is a political simulator, part RPG, part choose your own adventure, I guess you could say, where you play Anton Rayne, the president of Sordland, a country that is roughly modeled after 1950s Turkey. You are out of a rebellion and trying to rebuild. Quick recap, we have decided on our first major infrastructure project, which is a highway. We went against our party's wishes and vetoed a campaign finance bill, and we have decided to go the for the people route in this playthrough. Next playthrough is probably either going to be a for the state route or just picking the most douchiest option available. That one might be kind of fun. See how long it is before President Rayne gets assassinated, because that can happen in this game. We have no news to read right now, and scrolling around the map, we have an emergency meeting in Holsword. Now, at the end of the last episode, there was a shooting outside our inaugural ball. So things are not exactly going smooth for the Rayne administration so far. So the emergency meeting is gloomy, as to be expected. My cabinet members were gathered to discuss the shooting outside the palace. Lilius presented the initial report. Bernard Circas was shot dead at 9:03 p.m. in front of the palace gates. He was an elected independent member of assembly and, as you know, a famous communist. She spat the last word out with some distaste. We are pro-capitalist administration, so no friends to the communists here, although having people shot in the street right in front of the inaugural ball, not exactly a good situation either. The guards at the scene were 50 meters away and immediately took action by responding and killing the assailant, who was identified as the member of the nationalist organization Young Sords. Oh, excuse me. That's what you get when you slam a whole Mountain Dew. Young Sords is a right-wing nationalist political organization with alleged connections to a number of armed attacks against the Sordish government. We have close ties with the National Front Party. Okay. The president and his family were unharmed. Praise God. The MP was shot near the palace. That is absolutely unacceptable. What were the motivations of such a horrid act? But why Bernard Circas? And then I can whine. So I wasn't the target. I think I'm going to go with... let's find out what the motivations for that were. Our investigations are suspecting a political assassination since the Young Sords have been threatening the communists for some time. This sets a dangerous atmosphere where the left versus the right political violence of the 1920s might spark once again. A return to those days would be devastating. The coups are the reason why our country stagnated for a decade. The Minister of Justice, Nia Morgana, which is her, the Red Youth, has condemned the killing, but didn't stop there. They promised revenge. Alright, the Red Youth is apparently the opposing faction to the ones that killed him. This in turn will spark further aggression from the Young Sords. The whole cycle started because Bernard Circas expressed his views. We cannot simply look away. Nia had always been the only member of the Justice Ministry truly deserving of the name. She had survived countless attacks on her character while fighting corruption within the ministry, and rising to power had only compounded her sense of moral duty. So she's all around a decent person. Freedom of expression is part of our Constitution. We can't have anyone, let alone an MP, shot for voicing different opinions. which I agree with. I fully agree we should protect freedom of speech. The this ideology that the Red Youth promotes poses threats to our country too. We should be cautious, and the nationalist young swords have overstepped, and they should be put under the loop for such an extreme act. Well, we can agree. We can kind of side with the young swords, and we can either go the extreme route with the young swords themselves. Okay. Our laws do, and for a good reason. Silencing voices only results in fear and stagnation inside society. We had that before and know how well it was. I hear your concerns. Our police do their best to uphold the rights of our citizens. We will prevent such an act from happening again by making sure our security measures are reevaluated. The Ministry of Defense, Joseph, whatever, grunted in approval. It's got to be this guy. Yeah, Bulldog. He towered over the rest of us in full military uniform, his many war medals conspicuously on display. Agreed, ma'am. Our gendarmerie will also help boost security in the rural areas where possible. There might be more to come. We should refrain from making the issue a political one from the start. It will only add fuel to the fire. It is political, though, isn't it? You are right, we need to calm the situation. It's early, but will we attend the funeral? Well, it is kind of political. It was a political assassination. Yes, but we need to calm the country. If we take sides, we could escalate the situation further. There aren't many sides. The state versus its enemies. Okay, Joseph, calm down. Several police cars rushed past the Maroon Palace and everyone went silent. Regardless, a full investigation on all involved parties is underway. We will find the subversives and punish them soon enough, Mr. President. I will do my best to help coordinate the administrative tasks. Justice will be served, and the rule of law will return to this country stronger than ever. Only if we stay vigilant as a country. We must think about the upcoming budget. It's too soon to jump to conclusions. Reckless acts will have dire consequences. I agree. Internal stability must be maintained. Our security funding might need to be increased. We should not lose sight of our real political goals like the constitutional reform. Well, internal stability is probably a good thing in a country post-revolution, but we want to be careful of getting too heavy-handed here. I'm sure the Minister of Interior has already taken the necessary precautions. You can be assured that our police units and intelligence units are on increased threat condition. Nobody should be able to move a finger against government officials. Lucian took some notes after checking the latest newspapers and reports. It seems that the tensions between the communists and nationalists will escalate further. It will be very difficult to pass any meaningful change if there is chaos in the country. We can't pass any constitutional reform in such an atmosphere. We can't fix the recession if there isn't stability. We will make it through this and deliver on our promises. I'm going to stick with the route of stability. You are right. We need to trust our ministers to stabilize the situation if it comes to it. This will be it for today, then. We will convene again soon. Thank you all, and keep us updated. The meeting concluded, and the ministers left the room with concerned looks. It was hard to anticipate what would happen next. Okay. A few days later. Something big's about to happen, I bet. Okay, look at all the news and reports and stuff that we have to read. Read the report from Vol'jin. It's a bomb attack. At 11:48 a.m., an unattended bag in front of the NFP office in Vol'jin was destroyed by police on suspicions of a bomb threat, which were then verified. Upon further investigation, the Communist Party leader of Vol'jin has been arrested in connection with the incident. Uh-oh. Weapons seized in Culture Center. Local police forces report that a wardrobe full of heavy military equipment has been seized in a Young Sords cultural center in Gen. Regulars of the place denied having any knowledge about the weapons. The owners of the buildings have been detained along with 13 other people. The police captured 22 rifles and 2 machine guns. The equipment belonged to Sordish armed forces dated 1929, but kept in very good condition. So it looks like our security forces are at work across the country. Legal firearms found in the Communist Party office. Rubai Police Department raided the local Communist Party office after alleged attacks organized by one of the members and found illegal firearms in the office. The building had been closed and 22 members of the Communist Party of Sordland had been detained. Illegal KA-74 seized from Urzarn. The cache found in the Rumburg-made weapon included 46 KA-74s, 2,854 bullets, 12 handguns, 27 grenades, and bomb-making equipment was found in the basement of an abandoned house. No suspects have been detained. So there is just weaponry everywhere. Young Sords youth wing leader dead after terror attack. Uh-oh. The local Young Sords youth wing leader in Suzerain, Jack Torin, has claimed responsibility for the organized attack in the Blutish market that resulted in the death of 7. His base of operations have been raided and he was found dead inside with 2 bullet wounds to the back of the head. The scene was organized to make it look like a suicide. He shot himself twice in the back of the head. Pretty talented. So hopefully that didn't piss off the Blutish too much. Read the report from Narbol. Police are understaffed in Narbol. Narbol has reported that it is currently too understaffed to deal with the ongoing political violence. Due to the small size of the police force in the city, they have been working nonstop, and a number of officers were sent to the hospital as a result of severe fatigue. Okay. Police overburdened in Estord. We have been receiving reports of lack of equipment and staff from police forces in Estord. With the escalating violence in the city, the officers have been working 12-hour shifts to suppress the protest to no avail. Oh, here we go. Smolak warns traders in Wayland. The latest diplomatic message from the leader of Wayland warned us regarding a pathway from the mountains of Bergia that allowed traders of the state escaping to Sordland. President Viktor Smolak has demanded that the border security be increased. He also sent best wishes about the handling of the protests in Sordland. Wayland is a fragile country in the mountainous areas of western Marcopa. It is widely known to be the origin of the Nurdi religion and contains many important shrines. Okay. Alright, here we have something from Magnolia. Orton critiques trade. The leader of Agnolia has diplomatically critiqued the imbalance of trade between our countries. Concerns were raised over how much more Sordland profits from that trade in comparison to Agnolia. Prime Minister Martin van Horten requested a fair re-evaluation of existing treaties in future negotiations. Let's see a little bit about him. Let's see. Alright. What do we have to do in the capital here? The report from Whole Sword, dinner with the family, security briefing on the threats against Sordland. So I'll read the newspapers first. See what the Radical has to say. Farewell, Bernard Circas. This is probably all about Minister Circas. It is a sad moment for Sordland. We have lost a renowned poet who not only wrote about the struggles of the working class, but also acted on them. However, his decision to enter Sordish politics was met with a sick attack that ended his life. We, the team at the Radical, condemn this evil act of terror of the young Sords, who we believe must be held accountable as a whole group. It is finally time for the government to realize this organization has a terrorist threat and serve the justice that is due. Bernard Circas, okay. The only way out of recession, bailing out business. From the Economist. I don't wonder how they didn't get sued for that. But whatever. Sordland's economy has been displaying a downward trend over the past 2 years of Alfonso's presidency. If we want to prevent our country from declaring bankruptcy, we need a way out of this recession, and we need it now. The economic downturn keeps hitting hard at the businesses which are struggling to stay afloat. It is clear that a helping hand from the government is required to control the situation. There is no other way apart from bailing out businesses to truly provide relief to the economy. This, in turn, should revitalize the economy by creating more employment opportunities and increasing production in Sordland. Murder was a method of the past from the Lockhaven times. Tensions between left and right extremists have increased in the country after the assassination of Bernard Circas. Protest of Malinivist groups. Let's see, we live within these borders together, and therefore we all bear a responsibility, a duty to live together with our differences. This is from Franz Richter, a Sordish political businessman and the leader of the PFJP. Whoop. Sordland today, unity despite differences. Sordland has two paths to the future, and this year is critical to decide which path we embark upon. Amid a recession, the lack of stability and security caused by the death of Bernard Circas is an unacceptable reality. We need more jobs and a safe atmosphere if our country is supposed to grow and prosper. But how will we increase our employment and open new factories if there is blood flowing down the streets? I'm working on it, guys. I'm working on it. Sordish politician shot dead. Yep. More of the same. Let's see. Once again, dark hands have chosen our country and spilled blood in Whole Sword to achieve their dark goals, says Lilius Graff. We are investigating all aspects of this crime. His funeral will be held tomorrow in his home city of Dyer. Alright, so that's the newspapers. Let's have dinner. Dinner sounds like a good thing. After a long day at the palace, I was finally home. I thanked Serge and walked through the front gates, nodding at the two guards as I went by. Even as I turned the doorknob, I could hear Deanna rushing down the stairs to greet me. I opened the door, and there she was, standing in front of me with an expectant eyes. Papa, you're home. There's my beautiful princess. There's my little bright one. Lift and hug her. I lifted Deanna and hugged her while trying to put the keys in the tray next to the entrance. She was growing fast. Lifting her up was no longer as easy as it once was. How is school? Where's your mother? That's enough of that. You're a big girl now. How was school, girl? That's what I always ask my kids when I get home. Boring. I liked my old school better. Sounds familiar. I put her down and her expression turned serious. Papa, are the bad men gone? It was only one bad man. And yes, he's gone now. I will never let anyone hurt you. Yes, your papa took care of everything. She shouldn't have to worry about that, but I'd like her to think highly of me, so I'm going to take credit for whatever. Okay, Papa. And off she went. Mama, Papa's here. Monica appeared next to the kitchen door. She was wearing an apron and holding a spatula in her hand. Deanna, what did I tell you? No running in the house. Yes, ma'am. Monica approached me and kissed me on the cheek. A tantalizing smell wafted from the kitchen behind her. When's dinner? How was your day? I finally got to do some grocery shopping, just like old times, and I'm making your favorite. You mean... Zabla. Wish it gave a tooltip to, Oh wait, here we go. Zabla was one of my hometown specialties. A chickpea stew topped with beef braised in tomatoes and Bergen spices, traditionally served in a clay pot. It was absolutely my favorite dish, especially paired with kebi, a potent, unfiltered wine from my region. There we go. Where's the booze? What? You and Peter didn't booze it up enough back at the palace? No, we didn't. Where's the booze? Anyway, I just wanted to cheer everyone up a bit. Her smile faded, and she lowered her voice so Deanna wouldn't hear it, especially after what happened at the ball. I'm worried, Anton, for you, for the children, and for the country. And Deanna's back. Mama? Yes, sweetheart. I'm hungry. We'll eat in just a minute. Will you help me set the table? Anton, can you tell Frank to come down for dinner? He's been sulking in his room all day. Monica started talking about the china while I headed upstairs to fetch my son. Loud rock and roll music echoed down the hallway from his room. I caught a faint hint of cigarette smoke. I can either open the door or be polite and knock. I will knock. There was no response. Frank turned down that racket and opened the door. Well, I knocked. I'm not going to get mouthy with him just yet. I tried to open the door. The door was locked. Wow. Okay, there we go. Turn down that racket and open the door, boy. The stereo in Frank's room clicked off. All right, all right. He really does look like my vice president. He unlocked and opened the door. What do you want? Wow. Okay. Not liking his tone. I could say, food is ready. Turn those records up louder next time, won't you? I don't think the neighbors heard. I'm your father, and you will respond when I ask for you. Hand over those cigarettes and join your family for dinner. That's kind of neutral. That's smart-ass, hard edge, and kind of middle of the road. I'm your father, and you will respond when I ask for you. Sorry, Dad, I mean father. It won't happen again. Frank headed downstairs to the dining room, and I followed after. The table was prepared, and Monica was ladling food onto the plates. Come on, have a seat. It won't be as tasty if it's cold. As we started eating, the room went quiet. Monica's cooking was as delicious as ever. I had the feeling that wasn't the reason nobody spoke. Monica was the first to break the silence. Did you know that they refurbished the grocery store? That's exciting. I don't know if you remember the owner. He's been there every day for the past 30 years. Can you imagine doing the same job for so long? What if you were president for 20 years, for example? I don't want this country to suffer under another soul. 20 years of this, I'd be dead. Why not? We could live like kings. I don't want this country to suffer like another soul. Under another soul. Wouldn't that kind of be comparing myself to the despised soul? Would that really be so bad? I don't like any of these options. I don't think that'd be a good option given what just happened. We'll just say that. Monica measured me with her eyes for a moment. Uh-oh. She's giving me the look. Guys, you all know the look. I'm getting the look right now. Anyway, the grocer is a really nice person. He threw in some extra vegetables with my... Frank suddenly slammed his hand down on the table, rattling the china. Monica, Deanna, and I stared at him. So this is how it's going to be? We're just going to sit here like nothing happened? Dad, you could have been killed. Mom could have been killed. Any one of us could have died. Deanna's lower lip started to tremble. Monica put her hand on Frank's shoulder. Frank, you know I would never let anything happen to you or Deanna, even if it cost me my life. That probably wouldn't soothe my daughter's fears. And what would you have us do? And yet we're all still alive. You will not raise your voice to me, young man. I don't think it's time to be antagonistic with him. And yet we are still alive. For now, but how long until this happens again? Frank got up from his seat. Fine, let's talk about it. Sit down. Frank, where are you going? Frank, sit down now. Let's go with this one. Let's talk about it, son. Frank took his seat again, scowling. I know it was a close call, but everything is under control. Don't worry, we are going to be fine. Do you think I would let us go down that easily? Hey, I know it was a close call, but everything is under control. How? How is it under control? Pick up the newspaper, boy. We're cracking down across the country. You don't need to know the details. My security assured me that they took all the necessary steps, and it was one rogue shooter. We're not even the target. See, that's the thing, is we don't know it was a rogue shooter. It could have been planned. Just because they condemned it doesn't mean they weren't behind it. So my security assured me that they took all necessary steps. Same security that let a person get shot in front of the palace? Frank, listen to your father. If your father says we don't need to worry, then we don't need to worry. You have to trust him. She turned to me. We all have to trust each other. Oh boy. Things calmed down a bit at the table. We finished our food in silence. Frank got up first and retreated back to his room. Monica lifted Deanna up and plopped her in front of the living room TV before returning to the table. She sat down across from me. Anton, he's still young. I know, but there's not much longer we can shield him from the ugliness of the world. That's what worries me. I made plenty of rash decisions when I was his age. He's had every opportunity I never did. Why is he still acting out? Go with this one. I did stand up at a protest and got beat down pretty good, so you make plenty of rash decisions now, too. Frank's not the only one who's scared Anton. Oh, boy. I promise if there truly is any threat to this family, you will be the first to know. All you need to worry about is putting more delicious dinner on our table. I worry too, Monica. Things might escalate. Alright. She got up, stood behind me, and massaged my shoulders for a moment before leaving me alone in the dining room. I sat alone at the table and drained my glass of cabbage. Had I been lying to Frank and Deanna? Was the threat to my family truly over? Time would tell. Alright, enough. That was dinner, I guess. Protests across Sordland. Protests erupted around Sordland after the death of Bernard Circas, many of which started peacefully but soon turned violent. Protesters with red youth flags were seen in most central cities around Sordland, carrying out violent riots and organizing protests that disrupted much vital services from being delivered to the Sordish people. Protesters held sit-ins, which were broken up by riot police with tear gas and water cannons in the regions of Bergia, Agland, and Grunai. Thousands of people poured into Republic Avenue in Lockhaven and Sol Square in Hallsord in response to the Young Sords attacks. Similar protests around Sordland turned into violent riots. Protest in Grunai. Protests are taking place throughout the Grunai region in response to the assassination of Bernard Circas. So people are protesting across the country. Political chaos from the Lockhaven Times. The NFP and the LUS, which is the Labor Union of Sordland, and the National Front Party of Sordland are calling for protests. That's nice. We've got political parties calling for protest. That would never happen in reality. This guy from the National Front Party called a rally to condemn communist influence from United Cantana and called the violent protesters as traitors to Sordland. Alright, so things are not good in Sordland right now. People are protesting left and right. Chief of Police Karl Greiser reports that 2 Bludish women with affiliations to the Bludish Freedom Front have been caught in Holsord before they could execute a terror attack at a crowded rally. Bludish Freedom Front is a Bludish militant and political organization based in the Bludish region of Sordland and Wayland. The arrested women have admitted their intentions to attack the National Front Party's rally at Sol Square when Kazero Keebner gave his speech but rejected any connection to the BFFs. Both claims that they were acting alone. Alright. And now we've got a security briefing. And I arrived in front of the doors leading to the Situation Room. Today's security briefing was arranged into 2 parts, starting with internal matters and moving on to external matters after a short break. The Minister of Interior, Lilius Graf, and the Minister of Justice and Law, Nia Morgana, would join us for the first part, the law enforcement briefing. For the second part, the Minister of Defense, Josef Lancia, would join with a few high-ranking officials, including the Chief of the Armed Forces, Vulcan Kruger. I opened the door. Lucian, Nia, and Lilius rose from their seats. Sir, please take your seats. Or nod at Lucian. Doesn't matter. Everyone in the room sat down except for Lucian. He put on his glasses and went through the documents in front of him. Shortly after, he raised his head to address the attendees. Mr. President, ladies, we will kick off today's meeting with the internal security briefing. I am assuming everyone has already been over the agenda. We all have busy schedules, so without further ado, I will jump into our first topic. As we feared, the political atmosphere has worsened. The reports around the country indicated that tensions are rising as we feared. What is the status on the Bernard Circas investigation? I've received news this morning that the investigation into the murder of Bernard Circas has concluded. Great news. I'm eager to hear about the results. Please enlighten us. The more we know, the better. Keep it a little professional there instead of lighthearted. After further investigation and testimonies, we have confirmed the motive and also the events leading up to the shooting. A few days prior, members of the Red Youth initiated a violent attack on a young Sords local leader in Gen. We believe the young Sords then called for revenge, leading to the death of Mr. Circas. Since he often spoke against the Red Sords, the young Sords, the nationalist sentiments in the assembly, he was a big target, not to mention his radical communist views. Political violence needs to stop. Hey, he had it coming then. Radical, Sordland just lost a great writer. For what? The Red Youth are clearly to blame since they triggered it. The ends do not justify the means. Political violence needs to stop. Yes, we kept it at bay for so long, but it seems that there are now new triggers. Lilius handed over the report and pointed at a highlighted section in the document. The investigation revealed a very troubling fact. The funding sources of the Red Youth have a clear link to United Cantana, which is not good. Having a political faction inside our country funded by these guys, not good. What does that mean? Are you sure? This is proof they are meddling in our affairs. Be sure about that before you make that statement. Yes, we have found the cash trail. Several Red Youth members with ties to United Cantana have been detained, and the information extracted from them points to a preparation for a communist uprising in Sordland. It is unusual for the superpowers to influence other nations, but I think this case is a little far-fetched. The left lacks popular support in Sordland. Nia eagerly lifted her head. I motioned for her to speak. I went over the report in detail. It would be wrong to jump to the conclusion about a clear foreign interference yet. United Cantana has humanitarian and cultural ties with many countries, including Sordland. That doesn't mean they can mess with our stuff. I trust Miss Graff's judgment. United Cantana is clearly trying to expand its influence, or I also don't want to jump to conclusions immediately. We shouldn't create a crisis. Let's see. Anything in her bio that could suggest she may be trying to steer things in a particular direction? Doesn't really look like it, but she did have a good connection to Sol, because he made her mayor of Holsword, which she did very good at. But we shouldn't jump to conclusions on this. Nearly 3 decades ago, they funded General Rickard and tried to establish a communist dictatorship in our country. If it was not for Colonel Sol, we would have seen the real crisis. She took a sip from her glass of water and continued. Our police chief, Carl Greiser, has linked the funding channel to the United Cantana consulate in Benfi. As we all know, the enemies of Sordland are many, but we also have threats from inside this country. We need to remain vigilant. As the government, we have all the power to deal with any threats, or our country always had issues. This is a part of our job. That's kind of a neutral statement. Kind of stating the obvious. Alright, I'm going to go with number 2. As the government, we have all the power to deal with any threat. Just to show that I have a backbone, for one. And I kind of want to stay on her good side, or have her on my good side. If we give up essential freedoms to purchase temporary security, we deserve neither freedom nor security, says Nia Morgana Franklin. This is debatable, but yes, we know that more security and surveillance cause to this country under what... Let's try that one again. We know what more security and surveillance cause... Okay, so President Sol did that, and we know how that worked out. I'm literate most of the time. Let's not forget that President Sol, God bless him, brought stability after a long period of bloodshed and chaos. But moving on, our highest internal threat comes from the estimated 20,000-strong Bludish Freedom Front, led by the imprisoned Dulan Arj. They are a banned political organization, now a militant force that is trying to incite racial violence. Since when? They make a lot of noise but have little substance. A barking dog doesn't bite, but 20,000 strong Bludish Freedom Front individuals might bite. Are they supported by our Bludish citizens? Are they cooperating with any Bludish political organizations? Bludish Freedom Front. Let's see. Based in Bludish region of Sordland, Wayland. Oh, it's the BFF, huh? What do the Bludish people think about them? To some extent, the Bludish people accept them. Luckily, they couldn't attract a wide audience of Bloods. But they could potentially attract thousands if anti-Bludish sentiment spreads in Sordland again. Lilius pointed to the page 3 in the report. Our intelligence intercepted 2 crates filled with weapons close to the Rumburg border. They were filled with military-grade Ka-74s. We expected that more have been smuggled in since a group of Bloods were caught with these guns at a checkpoint not far away. Rumburg has been acting aggressively in the region for a long time. I'm not surprised that they would attempt to weaponize the Bludish people against us. This is worrying. Very worrying. Can we make any direct correlation to blame Rumburg? It was expected that Rumburg would undermine us, but this is too far. We need to keep level-headed with Rumburg. They are looking for reasons to take action. We can't let anyone meddle with our internal security. Can we connect them directly to Rumburg? I think they just did, but I'm going to go with that one. Not yet, but we have suspects that indicate such correlation. This is grave news, but we must be careful not to stoke the fires of anti-Bludish sentiment. What is the second most important threat? It is the gang violence that is threatening the Nargis and Aglan regions. 2 prominent organized crime families are at war, and the potential for bloodshed is real. Why can't we just arrest them? I don't think mere gangs can pose a threat to us. The third option always seems to be the one that's just kind of like, meh, whatever. Which 2 crime families? One is known as the Coronelli family, and the other as the Skinner cartel. They used to be allies until a recent disagreement. Both are active in the cities of Narbel and Estord. Coronelli cartel is one of the most notorious crime organizations in Sordland. It's rooted back to the 1880s, bootlegging. Sordish police force have been fighting them. Skinner cartel, skinning their enemies alive. Wow. Black market arms trade since 1910. Skinners haven't been getting along with the Coronelli due to a conflict of interest in their criminal networks. Okay. They're playing with fire. I want them gone. For good. Lilius, I trust you can handle them. They're insignificant, not worth our attention. That's your department, Lilius. I'm doing my best, sir. And sighed deeply. I shall be honest with you. With our current capabilities, we may not be able to prevent the further arming of separatists while maintaining order in Bergia, Nargis, and Aglan. If the law enforcement budget isn't increased, I can't be fully responsible for what happens. Oh, she bounced it right back to me. In light of this information, I might increase the law enforcement budget, and you will do your job, whatever happens. Don't come to me with excuses. Okay. Maybe you'll get more money for the law enforcement. We'll see. We will rid our country from separatist and violent thugs if you do so. I wish you would stop using the word thugs, Lilius. The real problem is corruption, which is fueling the gang violence and is very likely the reason why these weapons were smuggled in. A higher budget could help us end that. Valid points. Corruption is at the root of all evil. Your ministry must tackle the issue with persistence, Miss Morgana. These threats seem more direct than a few bribes. We are, but it needs all the attention it can get from our administration. Lilius and Nia were openly scowling at each other. Lilius turned back to her notes. They don't get along. Well, this concludes the topics for the internal portion. Thank you for the updates, Mrs. Graff, Mrs. Morgana. Thank you for the overview. Have a good day. Until next time, the two ministers left the room. We took a short break before continuing to the second part. Upon invitation, Joseph Lancia, along with 3 high-ranking officials from the Minister of Defense, walked into the room. One of the men was none other than General Kruger, the Chief of the Armed Forces. Joseph made his way towards the table while the others stood by the door. Mr. President? Okay, welcome, Joseph. I brought General Kruger with me due to the escalation on our borders. General Kruger stepped forward and saluted. He had a strong jaw and sharp cheekbones. His tall stature, uniform, and medals combined with his deep and intense stare. That's this guy. Look at his eyes. Maybe it's just the resolution of my monitor, but his eyes look pretty strange. Must be his deep and intense stare. He was in his 70s, yet he had a bulky body that was the result of his commando training. Not only was he the second most decorated officer in Sordland, he was also the longest serving. General Kruger, I'll stop short of saluting him. I am the president, after all. Mr. President, it's an honor. Joseph tapped his foot impatiently. He seemed uneasy with the president's presence of another high-ranking officer in the room. Sorry about that. Gentlemen, thanks for coming to this significant gathering. Let's begin. Joseph and Vulcan took their seats at the table while the rest of the officers stood by the door. Why does it keep going down? Okay. Mr. President, the situation at the western and northern borders towards Rumburg is very tense. We are observing deployments of divisions closer to our borders. Rumburg has been actively increasing expansionist in the past decades, acting increasingly expansionist in the past decades, and also interfered in Agnolia, but now they have turned their sights on us. I trust the capabilities of our armed forces to handle any threat. This concerns me very much, and what is your current strategy? I'm going to go with that one, because I don't know yet. Patrolling close to the border with our border force and keeping Army Reserve divisions near. It seems like they want to increase the pressure both externally and internally. Mr. President, if I may? Please, General, go on. The picture is becoming clearer. The latest information from the interior about the weapon cache, and now there is an active military buildup close to our border. The entire situation was analyzed by our general staff, and our prediction is a future territorial incursion by Rumburg. which is not good. I have complete trust in the general staff. The threat is exaggerated, or let them come, we will give them hell. I have complete trust in the general staff. We will not let you down, Mr. President. The general staff is composed of the smartest military individuals. I require an increase in the military budget to enlist more soldiers. Only then we can stand strong against our enemies. The enlarged armed forces will hold them at bay. Vulcan is right. We do need an increase in the military budget. Although we don't see eye to eye on exactly how to spend the budget, that much we agree on. I have my concerns about Rumburg too. We need strong allies to withstand such a superior power. They are our nemesis. That is an understatement. Times are changing and war is coming, Mr. President. Whether we like it or not, we must be prepared. During the election, you said nothing about focusing on our military. I ask you to consider and to increase the military budget. The future and safety of Sordland is in your hands. I am a man of my word, Joseph. Maybe you are right. Defense of our nation is more important, and as you said, times change, Joseph. We will see. I am a man of my words. Doesn't actually answer anything he just said. Defense of our nation is more important. So I think the choice is going to come down to more funding for the military or more funding for internal security. I'm going to go with defense of our nation is more important. I knew you would understand, Mr. President. Our forces would crumble under a decrease, and Rumburg would be much more compelled to exploit our weakness. Our country hasn't fallen to any invading force for 200 years. You cannot let it happen, Mr. President. We should find regional allies like Vogsland or Lesbia to deter Rumburg. There are several options on the table. Rumburg wouldn't attack any nation allied with any superpower. Sordland must stand on its own 2 feet and be able to defend itself. These options should be considered. So Vogsland, Socialist Republic on the island of Volgos and several small islands, or Lesbia. Alright, well, Rumburg wouldn't attack anyone that's allied to any superpower, you would hope. One shudders at the sacrifice they would require us to make. Yes, but what is different between losing our independence to one or the other? Well, that's a good point. Everyone fell silent when a soldier entered the room and let Joseph Lancia know that a call had come through from the ministry. Excuse me, Mr. President. Joseph left the room. A few minutes later, he entered the room again. His expression had changed. Mr. President, there has been Rumburgian military activity close to the Narble border. I just spoke with the local commander. Smallest and poorest city in the largest region. Vulcan, we should go to the ministry to get further updates from our branches. Understood. Raising military readiness is the first call of action. If there is truly an extraordinary attempt, we will relay it to you immediately and wait for further orders, Mr. President. Make sure they know we are observant and ready. Go and show them the might of the Sordish armed forces. Your service is appreciated, gentlemen, and remain calm. Make sure not to escalate things further. Nobody wants war. I'm going to go with number 1. Make sure they know we are observant and ready so that they know that we are watching, but not going to go beating the drums of war just yet. Always watching, always ready is our motto, sir. Hail Sordland! Hail! They saluted and left the room. Rumburg was already testing us, and the reports from the interior indicate interference from inside her borders. Communists, nationalists, Blutish rebels, Rumburg expansionists. What was next? Sordland had always been a key piece in the chessboard of the global rivalry between Arcasia and United Cortana. But in recent years, there was no such aggression from Rumburg, not at these levels at least. All it takes is one tiny spark to start a flame of war. The phone rang. Rumburg had decided to close their consulate in Lockhaven. Alright, that's going to do it for today's episode. It appears that the fallout over the assassination of Bernard Circas is starting to boil over to the rest of the country, so we're going to have to deal with that, as well as Rumburg. I'm sure they'll play a big part in the rest of the story. Anyway, if you like the episode, hit that like button. It'll help the channel out a little bit. If you'd like to follow along with Anton Rayne, hit that subscribe. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. J76NY saying thank you very much for watching and have a very good night.